Welcome back. This is episode 4, and guess what? This is a big one. Now, you've learned how to fuel your body. You've learned how to move smarter and why building muscle is non-negotiable. But midlife fat loss isn't just about fuel and movement. The real breakthroughs come from what happens between your recovery, your stress, and your hormones. So today we're going to be diving into the X factors that quietly control your metabolism, how to sleep deeply, how to calm that stress, how to support good hormone balance, and even uncover these hidden roadblocks like toxins or even mindset blocks that could be creating some weight loss resistance. And here's the exciting part in our final episode, episode 5. Stay tuned for that. I'm going to put it all together into the simple, sustainable blueprint that you can follow starting right away. But first, before we get there, let's tackle these game changers. Let's go with what I think is probably the single most important vitamin of all. I call it vitamin S, sleep. You got to prioritize your sleep. This is really your metabolic restoration button. By the way, getting just less than 7 hours of sleep, your hunger hormones go haywire. You've got elevated ghrelin, less leptin, you're more insulin resistant. In fact, there was a study that showed that adults who increased their sleep just to 7 to 8 hours naturally ate fewer calories. A study in JAMA Internal Medicine found that adults who added about an hour of sleep ate, get this, 270 fewer calories per day. That means they weren't dieting, they weren't exercising more, they just were getting quality sleep. So let's break it down. So there's deep sleep. During deep sleep, you've got growth hormone release, you're burning fat, your cortisol is getting regulated. And this is where, again, the largest pulses of growth hormone occur. This is especially, by the way, in the first part of the night. And why does this matter? Well, growth hormone plays a huge role in tissue repair, in building muscle, in regulating your metabolism, also in helping with breaking down fat, because growth hormone promotes fat breakdown, lipolysis. So that deep sleep growth hormone surge is going to help you repair and burn more fat. Now, we know that poor sleep messes up your insulin. It reduces insulin sensitivity, which of course then increases the risk of weight gain. So you've got a really important factor here in maintaining healthy weight balance and losing fat with deep sleep. The other thing that's important here is cortisol. So cortisol, of course, goes down in the evening. And as you start to fall asleep in that early sleep, that's when it really starts to bottom out. It comes back up in the morning to wake you up. But when you've got disrupted sleep, short sleep, you can end up with what I call that tired and wired high evening cortisol, which is going to create appetite dysregulation, body fat storage around your waistline, and mess up your sleep further. How unfair is that? The other part of sleep is REM sleep, and this supports brain health, stress balance, and helps you also control your appetite and your cravings. So REM is critical for memory consolidation, for emotional regulation, and neuroplasticity. In fact, poor REM sleep is linked to depression, anxiety, and impaired cognitive performance. And REM also helps regulate the brain's limbic system and HPA axis. That's where we're going to really modify and monitor our stress responses. When you restrict your sleep, especially if you're cutting into the REM, you are going to increase ghrelin, that hunger hormone. You're decreasing leptin, the satiety hormone. And guess what you're going to crave? I always say it's not salmon and broccoli. It's those ultra-processed, high-fat, high-carb foods. So again, think of deep sleep. This is your body's time to repair. You've got the growth hormone pulses, you're burning fat, your cortisol's getting into balance. And then REM sleep is your brain's real time to repair and get recovery, get emotionally regulated, get your stress balanced, and get that appetite under control. As you can see, both matter. Both are essential. If you lose one, you compromise your metabolism, your cravings, and your overall resilience. And that is why poor sleep is tied to both insulin resistance. Just one poor night of sleep and you are more insulin resistant the next day. And it's tied to obesity risk. In fact, there was a review in the journal Obesity that found that people sleeping under 6 hours a night had much higher odds of weight gain and obesity than those getting 7 to 8 hours a night. Short sleepers had 50 to 90% higher odds of obesity, likely due to the hormonal dysregulation, the lower energy. Who wants to work out when you're tired, right? And greater fatigue. Okay, so what do you got to do about this? Commit. Make time for sleep. Prioritize it. 7 to 9 hours each night, which means if you want 7 hours of sleep, you don't get in bed and have exactly 7 hours, right? You want to have a cool, dark room. Set yourself up. I like to take the hour before bed. I learned this from Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor, to be the power down hour. So that hour before bed for me is when I'm turning down the lights. I've got rid of all the blue lights. We've got the red lights going. We've actually switched our light bulbs. This is a super cool hack. So in our bedroom, we switched to these Philips Hue light bulbs. And these things are cool. You can hit the little app on your phone and turn them into the red lights at night. We've lowered the temperature. It's especially good if you can take a hot bath or a sauna that then makes your body go into like hypercooling stage. So we do that. But I also stop the thinking. And I will tell you, last night I violated this little rule and I worked too late. I worked till like 9:30 at night and completely messed up my sleep. I know better. I still blow it sometimes. But my big goal is by 8 o'clock at night, I've gone out for a walk with the dogs. We're doing the power down hour. I'm cooling it down. We're dimming the lights. And we've made our bedroom a sanctuary. And that's what you want to do too. It should be quiet. It should be dark. It should be cool. You should have a comfortable bed, comfortable pillows. Shout out to my Omnia Sleep and Glow pillow that I even travel with. And then before bed, I take about an hour before I take my sleep candy with melatonin and theanine and inositol and B6. I take my magnesium. And so I have my sleep routine. And one other thing important here, at home, I don't need my eye mask because we've got it pitch black, but I travel with a really cool Manta eye mask that has eye cups so I don't mess up my lashes. And I also travel with Oslo sleep buds that do this great white noise because I end up in some hotels. I don't know what my, why I seem to attract the room where there are like people partying outside in the hallway or whatever, but it's like or maybe I'm sensitive to sound, but I always travel with these sleep buds so that I never end up in trouble with that. So one thing I can shout out to you too, because that was just like a little bit of a quickie for you. I've got my video, The Best Sleep Routine to Get 8 Hours of Quality Sleep for Women. So watch that. I've got 7 hacks for deeper sleep, how to align your circadian rhythm and the supplements that really help. And of course, more on why better sleep makes weight loss so much easier. All right. So that is sleep. Let's move on to stress and recovery and what you need to do to really calm that, cortisol storm. Because as we know, chronic stress can create high cortisol, and high cortisol can create belly fat, cravings, and it makes you catabolic. It's hard to build muscle. There was a study in the Journal of Obesity that found that women with more belly fat secreted higher levels of cortisol under stress, and their cortisol stayed elevated longer than women with less belly fat. So here's the problem. More belly fat, more cortisol, more belly fat. Round and round we go. So what do we need to do? If you're working out hard, remember you also need to recover as well. Both your muscles and your nervous system need recovery. And in life, if you're working hard, you need recovery. How do we do that? Well, today I went to a yoga class and had some sound healing in it too. So maybe it's breath work for you, meditation, journaling, laughter, fun, social connection. You got to find those things that give you some bliss. And it may just be building in like 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the afternoon. Find the things that work for you. Tapping is one I would shout out because it can lower cortisol by like as much as 27%. Supplements are great too. Things like B vitamins, magnesium, adaptogens like ashwagandha and rhodiola can really help here. So these can be things. Licorice can also help keep cortisol around if you're more in adrenal exhaustion. And sleep. One of the challenges is stress impacts sleep and makes it harder for you to sleep. And then you sleep poorly. So it kind of becomes a double-edged sword, but you need to sleep well to manage your stress better and to heal your adrenals, right? So the two go hand in hand. Tell you, one of the other cool things, it used to be really hard to kind of figure out where you were in terms of stress. I really love heart rate variability for this. So monitor yours, get in the habit of looking at your HRV in the morning and use that. If you see your HRV is kind of plummeting, it may be time to think about like taking a restorative yoga class or maybe going to a sound bowls class or getting a friend and hanging out. Think of this me time, this self-care as a metabolic strategy. It's not like some luxury. And again, it could be something like a bath, gardening, whatever the thing is that tells your body to chill out, that everything's safe, you're cool, right? Because that chronic stress just makes you lay down more fat around your waistline and hold on tight to it. Another thing that can impact that, of course, are hormones. So let's talk perimenopause and menopause, because as you start to enter this phase, first of all, progesterone is going to start to go down, which is going to impact your sleep. And then estrogen's going down. And when estrogen goes down, a lot of things go sideways. First of all, cortisol tends to go up and you become more insulin resistant. Those two things lay down more belly fat. It becomes harder for you to build muscle. Estrogen's anabolic. It helps us build muscle. We always think of testosterone for that. And yes, that's important too. Actually, we have the most testosterone, not the most estrogen or progesterone. So testosterone's our highest of those hormones. But we need estrogen to build muscle, and we need estrogen to control inflammation. So as estrogen goes down, you might see some things start to shift in your cardiovascular health. You'll start to feel like you can't recover from the gym. You feel like you can't build muscle like you used to. And those are all the cases that can happen with estrogen dipping. So if those things are happening, you are not crazy. Plus, by the way, muscle glucose uptakes drop as much as 25%. You're not able to bring that glucose into your muscle. In fact, there was a study in menopause that found that early postmenopausal women absorb significantly less glucose into their muscles compared to premenopausal women. That's not peri, but pre. If you are more estrogen deficient, you are not as insulin sensitive, you have trouble getting carbs into your muscles. How do we deal with that? Well, guess what? If you do something like air squats right after you eat, you're going to suck those carbs into your working muscles. Resistance training helps you create more muscle, so more place for you to put carbs into your muscles. So you can counteract that by eating protein first, by doing that resistance training, by doing some functional training after you eat, right? Those really help here. And this isn't about not eating carbs, by the way, but eating the right types of carbs that don't cause a big blood sugar spike that causes a big insulin rise. So eating by the plate of protein first, slow, low carbs with lots of fiber, and doing that resistance training, especially doing some short resistance training. Again, this can be as simple as some air squats, 30 to 60 of them after a meal. And remember, one quickie thing about this, as you build muscle, first of all, when you're doing high intensity interval training and resistance training, you are depleting glycogen stores. That's the carbohydrate stores in your muscle. And then as you're building muscle, you give now sugar a place to land. And that is especially true if you do it right, do again, a little bit of exercise right after you eat. Hugely helpful. There is another thing happening that can create some weight loss resistance, and that's hypothyroidism. And it doesn't have to be like overt hypothyroidism. It can be a small decline. This is where you want to get your thyroid stimulating hormone, your free T4, free T3, and your antibodies checked. Especially if you've had any of these kind of signs. You're a little bit chilly all the time. Outer third of your eyebrows start to go away. You get constipated. Your cholesterol goes up. You feel a little depressed. You're losing your hair. According to the American Thyroid Association, 1 in 8 women are going to develop a thyroid disorder in their lifetime, and up to 60% of those are affected or are unaware they have it. And by the way, the TSH numbers are notoriously too wide of a range, where you'll see the normal range from anywhere from like 0.5 all the way up to, I think, 4.5. It's somewhere in there. Really, the ideal range is somewhere more in the range of like 1. And by the time you get to something like 2.5, you've got a lot of those symptoms going on. So this is one where you really want to work with a great thyroid doctor who looks at what's going on with you, symptoms that are going on with you as well, and the labs, and then helps you do what you need to do to get yourself back into balance. Because if your thyroid's not working well, it's going to be very hard for you to balance your sex hormones as well, and very hard for you to build muscle, and hard for you to drop the body fat. One other key important thing here is your mindset. And you know what I find so often at this time of life is you finally start to make that shift. That shift where you're realizing that you can no longer continue on with you not even making it to the top of your to-do list. For so often in our life, our focus is on our kids or our parents or our job or all of those. And it's like, and the house, like all the things that we have to do. And like, you just never make it to the list. And that whole adage of like, put your oxygen mask on first sounds great, but it's like in reality, we're not doing that. And there's something that starts to happen here as things start to shift where you realize you just can't, your margin for error is gone. You just can't get away with the things you used to get away with. And you got to put your self-care top of the list. So if you're not there yet, let's just get there now, because in order for you to really show up the best for your family, for your career, for yourself, is by putting yourself first. Everybody benefits when you do. So those are the basics. Now, I used to teach this course to healthcare practitioners called Overcoming Weight Loss Resistance. And I really look at all of the things that could get in the way of you losing weight and cause you to gain weight. And some of those things are things you may not think about. One of them in particular is what are known as obesogens. These are toxins, things like BPA and phthalates, plastics, fragrances that have been found to disrupt hormones, cause insulin resistance. They can create problems with dropping thyroid function and contribute to fat gain and also to metabolic risk. And so there's a couple things we have to look at here is, first of all, reducing the risk of exposure of these as much as possible, but also getting them out on a regular basis. This is where sauna and hot baths can be super, super effective, along with eating a lot of fiber and sweating with exercise. So toxins can be an issue for being able to lose fat and keep it off. But another one that can be an issue is chronic inflammation. A lot of that can happen from your gut and your gut microbiome. It's really interesting. Your gut microbiome can actually change how your body absorbs nutrients. In fact, we know that someone who's got a specific type of imbalance between Firmicutes and Bacteroides in their gut actually may extract more calories from the food they eat and store them as fat. We also know that if you've got any kind of damage to your gut lining where your gut's more permeable, you may be reacting to certain foods that's creating low-grade inflammation in your body and making you crave the very foods that are hurting you. This is what I write about in The Virgin Diet. It was because I was looking at food sensitivity testing and seeing the same food showing up in people that had leaky gut and seeing how many people had leaky gut. This is something where if you feel like you're doing everything right and eating healthy, but when you eat, you feel bloated or your joints hurt, or you're tired, it's something for you to trial, and you trial it for 21 days and you see how you feel. Quite often, if you are reacting to these foods, as you pull them out, you quickly drop that inflammation. In fact, I saw people lose up to 7 pounds in a week, mainly because they were dropping a bunch of inflammation quickly. They were not losing 7 pounds of fat, let's be clear. And so for the Virgin Diet, it's things like gluten, dairy, corn, eggs, soy, peanuts, and sugar and artificial sweeteners. Now, Greek-style yogurt and pastured eggs can be amazing, but not for everybody, and not if your gut's leaky. And sometimes you have to heal your gut to go back to these things. And also sometimes you have to really balance out your gut microbiome so that you're not having that imbalance that's causing you to extract more calories from the food you eat and store it as fat. So there are a lot of different things that can be going on with your gut that could be causing different areas of weight loss resistance. In fact, there's some research showing that gut imbalances like small bacterial overgrowth and viral infections can put you at a higher risk for obesity. There was a study in Nature that found that obese individuals absorbed more calories from the same food due to these gut bacterial imbalances, and that drove weight gain. So again, toxins can be an issue. And of course, gut dysbiosis, this broad range of it, can be an issue as well. Big important thing here. I remember someone saying, hey, how do you get healthier and stay healthier? And I go, you find fitter friends. You get yourself with a community. You don't try to do this one alone. So that's the other piece of it, is jump into my Facebook community, the JJ Virgin Lifestyle community. We are here to support you, and you'll be hanging out with other people on the same path. What a journey this series has been. We talked mindset, we talked muscle, we talked fuel, fitness, and recovery, and hormonal strategies that tie it all together. And here's the message. It's super simple. Lasting fat loss and vitality after 40 isn't only possible, it is the new normal. Let's make it our new normal when you approach your health in this way. And remember our mantra, you have to get healthy to lose weight. You don't lose weight to get healthy. You got to prioritize your sleep. You got to manage your stress. You got to align your hormones, clear out those hidden mindset blocks. And when you do, guess what? Your metabolism will finally work for you instead of working against you.